quite a bit of green. We've got industrials under pressure today and financials losing some ground. Banks only just ending the day off in positive territory. But again, a bit of caution ahead of Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. The EU unions will be speaking on Wednesday night, and I think markets will remain rather cautious until we get a bit more sound news coming out of that Euro region. As you can see here, as you said, the industrials were fairly flat in the day, and the resource sector, there was actually quite a big switch into the resource sector. So as we just saw on your board, that they were up close to 2%. So there is a little bit of risk appetite still, surprisingly enough. We'll have to wait and see what development comes on Wednesday.
I know you wanted to touch on the likes of MTN, which is down 1.5%. Vodacom ending the day up around 0.8%. Again, we're hearing that MTN is interested in Vodacom's Congo assets. We've also seen that price targets for the likes of MTN downgraded somewhat and Vodacom upgraded. What is your play between the two companies?
Yeah, look, Vodacom is obviously trying to sell this unit in the DRC, and their partner in the DRC is actually trying to block that sale. That's actually been putting a lot of pressure on the Vodacom share price. They've come from 93 Rand down to this 86 Rand 50 level. They were trading around 86.30 odd for at some stage in the day, so they actually bounced quite aggressively. At the end of the day, as one can see, I would assume in the closing auction it might have been pushed up a bit. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of pressure on the share price because of that DRC asset sale that they're trying to lose. MTN, as you said, was interested in that stake or to take control of that business that they're trying to get rid of. And MTN also just been under pressure, really. As I said, also with the industrials, a move out of industrials into the resource sector.
Opportunity to buy the likes of MTN at 131?
I think so. From what I can recall, about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, when it did sell off, it came down to about 126, 127, 127.50 in that sort of region. I do think at those sort of levels you can actually start to accumulate stock. And Vodacom also, it's also on some nice support at around these sort of levels.
I was watching Massmart as well today. It's down just over 1%. And then you have the likes of ShopRite, which is up 2.2%. We had Woolies up 2% in today's session as well. We know that Massmart has had quite a bit of trouble with the unions, and we know the hearings are currently underway. Any specific reason that Massmart is down over 1%, and we've got the other retailers doing okay today?
Yeah, that whole story has just been a drama, really. It's been ongoing for months, as we know. And yes, there was news today on Massmart again. They're actually trying to, or the unions are actually taking it to court to try and get them to ensure that one of the terms and conditions associated or attached to the deal is that they sell up to 75% of goods to be produced and manufactured in South Africa. And it's actually fairly unrealistic if you look at other...
Do you think it's fair though, Daniel? Do you think we should be imposing these kind of conditions on multinationals coming into South Africa to protect our manufacturing sector?
It's very debatable. It will obviously take some sort of shine off the other businesses. It's actually just creating a lot more competitiveness around that whole retail space. I think it should be allowed. I don't see why not. Massmart's a business, and they've been acquired by Walmart, and they're trying to grow and trying to expand into Africa. So if the others are lagging behind, falling behind, why not see Massmart go ahead and carry on?
Do you own Massmart?
I don't personally own Massmart, no. It's had a huge run, and at these sort of levels, I think it's somewhat pricey. It was, I know the share from around 100 Rand. It's had a huge run up. So, the move down the share price today is, I think, really maybe just some people just taking a little bit of profits, maybe just trying to stay out of the share. But general investors, big overseas investors, are still heavily invested.
One sector that has been enjoying gains, and you were alluding to it a little earlier, the resource space. We've seen quite a bit of rotation into the resource counters. And again, we saw that flash PMI number out of China. It seems that there was quite a bit of optimism with regards to Chinese growth once again, even though we were dismal about it last week. BHP Billiton is trading at around 248 Rand or so. It was up 2.5% in today's session. Tell us about the diversified space. Is BHP where you want to be? I know Anglo American has actually been underperforming relative to BHP Billiton.
Yeah, it really has. Anglo is, as you said, really underperforming the whole resource sector, especially Billiton's. Billiton's actually been fairly strong. And in terms of diversification, of course, but Billiton's got the oil component to it as well, whereas Anglo's doesn't. Also slightly different in terms of minerals and resources that they mine, precious metals versus more hard metals. So a slightly different space, but more or less they track each other very closely. They've actually traded out of sync a bit, so I'd expect to see Billiton maybe pull back a bit, or Anglo start to perform a bit better versus Billiton in the shortcoming future.
How closely linked is BHP Billiton and Anglo American to the actual copper price? Because copper hasn't been performing that well. It's viewed as a barometer, and the gauge to actual global growth, which has also been affecting the overall performance of resource counters, not only in South Africa but globally as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, the copper price, talking about that PNI number in China as well, that was actually an expansion number. So that actually pushed a whole lot of the commodity prices high overnight, and hence why Asia was so strong. We came into the morning, markets were up, and then we had a bad number in Europe, a bad PMI number in Europe. We sold off. But commodity prices have been holding up, especially the copper price. It's actually had quite a big jump in the last couple of days. It's been up about 5%, if I can recall correctly. So, they do. I don't think investors would look too closely at copper on its own to decide whether or not they should be buying and selling Anglos and Billiton. I think it's more of the whole sort of market, the resource space, whether people are looking for risk in the markets, and just generally it does track markets overall.
Okay, well, copper sitting at $7,380 per ton. Anglo-American, we had the board up a short while ago. It was up only 2% relative to BHP, which was up 2.5%. Lonmin, though, at the top of the top 40, trading up almost 4%. Would you want a pure play into the platinum space, and would Lonmin then be one of them?
Look, not for me really. I think Lonmin is more, Lonmin is very, very illiquid. So the big move in Lonmin could have been due to its liquidity in the market. I would rather look at something like Amplats or Implats to get a gauge of how the platinum shares are gauging in the market. It's much more closely linked. Lonmin, it has been hit fairly hard, as well as Amplats and Impala Platinum, so they're all coming off a low base, so it's nice to see it getting a bit of a move up. Again, one can see that risk going back into the markets like the resource sector, and clearly they're coming for Lonmin.
And one stock at the bottom of the top 40, Steinhoff, shedding almost 3% today. Any specific movement, any specific reason? Is it tough to actually gauge on a day-to-day basis why stocks have such dramatic moves to the downside? Before there would always be a very strong explanation, and now 3% movement to the downside is something normal.
Yeah, look, I wish I could follow and track each share, every day exactly what the movements are. But I would also, the whole retail sector as a whole has had a very strong move up. One can see also that foreign investors have been heavily invested in these retailers. I'm not surprised to see a stock like Steinhoff slightly down in the day. One can see it was a very slow grind down. There wasn't particularly any drastic seller according to this chart for intraday chart. So it's probably just a little bit of profit taking. And as I said again, risk off on the slightly more defensive plays and back into the resource sector.